Welcome to the NBAV podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast. We're going to start with the featured ball game of the night, which was the potential preview of what could be to come in the NBA Finals. I've been saying it for a while. Everyone else has been saying it for a while. We all know it. The Celtics against the Denver Nuggets. Now, in the aftermath of the game, which of course the Nuggets prevailed 115-109, Jokic was unbelievable down the stretch. Jamal Murray had great moments as well a little bit earlier in the fourth quarter. And Aaron Gordon had a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of that vintage Aaron Gordon dunking ability. Jokic with some great passes to Aaron Gordon where you weren't quite sure what was happening, and then next thing you know, the ball is already through the basket. So pretty incredible stuff from the Denver Nuggets. And it seems like the reaction is that the Nuggets own the Celtics. The Nuggets are not to be stopped. This is going to be a foregone conclusion that if the Nuggets make the finals and the Celtics make the finals, that the Nuggets will handle them. And I just want to remind everybody, this was one ball game. Not to mention, as everyone talks about how unstoppable Jokic is and the Denver offense is and how they get good shots on every play, this was still only a 6-point game when it's all said and done. 115-109, and there were points within the final minute or so where it was a 2-point ball game. So I understand Jokic is amazing, and I'll be the first one to say it. But let's not make it like there's a vast difference between these two teams. Not to mention, if you were to take these two teams and say, which team is better, I would still wager that the Boston Celtics have the better team. The more talented all-around roster. Furthermore, I think if you take the two teams and you say, which one has a higher ceiling? If both teams are playing at their absolute peak, which team will be better? And I think that's the Boston Celtics. This wasn't a good game for Jason Tatum, so you still have games where Tatum's going to be a lot better than he was tonight. The Celtics are in a phenomenal position. They don't need to win any more games for the rest of the season, and they'll be the 1 seed. The Celtics have the playoff experience. They've been to the finals already. They've gone hard series against the Miami Heat. And Miami Heat fans are saying, oh yeah, give us the Boston Celtics. We're going to take them. And on a season like this for Boston, this is not the same Boston team that you beat last year. And I know that Jimmy Butler was unbelievable. And I know that you went up 3-0 and then you nearly blew it. But mercifully for the Miami Heat fans, they prevailed in Game 7. But this Celtics team is not that same team. This is a vastly improved roster. Maybe it was only a couple of improved pieces, but those pieces are big improvements, and they round out the roster in an extreme way. I hate to break it to you, Miami Heat fans, but the Miami Heat aren't beating the Boston Celtics in a series this season. The Celtics are going to walk in there a different team. They're going to walk in there with a different level of confidence, and Jimmy Butler isn't going to be enough to just take the series. This is the Boston Celtic year in the Eastern Conference, and it still has a very high chance of being a Boston Celtics championship year overall. I would still say they are the absolute favorite to win the title. And in a lot of ways, this felt exactly like the last time the Celtics were in the NBA Finals, where Jaylen Brown was just playing off the wall unbelievably well. He's not afraid of anything. He doesn't seem to care about anything. Nothing bothers him. If something was to bother Jaylen Brown, it would have bothered him already, because it's already been years of people coming at him saying he can't dribble the basketball. People saying he shouldn't be shooting as much as he does. Then you have the exorbitant contract that everybody is clowning him for. Then you have the failed attempt in the dunk contest that everyone was clowning on him for. And he doesn't seem to care. He says he would do it again. When Boston seems like Jason Tatum's not playing well in the finals, Jaylen Brown is there, and he's playing unbelievably well against Golden State. When Jaylen Brown isn't playing well against Denver, when Jason Tatum's not playing well against Denver, Jaylen Brown is playing amazing against Denver. So Brown is there, and Porzingis is there. People are saying that, oh my gosh, Jokic made him look so small. Yeah, Jokic is an amazing offensive player, but Kristaps Porzingis also provides on the offensive end a lot of easy baskets, which the Celtics sometimes don't always take the easiest of shots. And Drew Holiday was shooting them back into this ball game all the way at the end. Drew Holiday has a clutch gene, and he showed it when he was on Milwaukee, hitting some big shots in their finals run and their finals victory. And he showed last night he's not scared of the moment himself. He hit a couple of massive threes. He's not scared to shoot the final shot. He'll do it. He'll bring you back. So there's just a lot of positivity, I think, on the side of Boston. This was one game last night. This was one game during the regular season. Think of it like when you have a Bills versus Chiefs matchup in the regular season, and Josh Allen wins the game for the Buffalo Bills, but you know that come playoff time, it doesn't really matter because the team that won in the regular season can go lose in the playoffs. I remember seasons where Eli Manning lost in the regular season to Tom Brady and the Patriots and then came back and beat the Patriots when it mattered most. These are one-game regular season games that we're talking about right now. Do you want to win? Of course. I mean, who wants to lose? You want to win every game. You want to go 82-0 and then sweep the first round, sweep the second round, sweep the conference finals, and sweep the finals and be a perfect champion. Of course that's what you want. You never want to lose, but this is an 82-game season. And then you have to win another 16 games after that. Or if you're a team that wants to do it like the Miami Heat did last year, you'd have to win 18 games because you have to win one play-in game in 17 games. This is a real marathon. And you can't get overthinking. You can't be overthinking one game. Yeah, Nikola Jokic is amazing, and he's going to be there, but you don't know exactly what's going to be. The Denver Nuggets are fully dependent on Jokic, and they're fully dependent on Murray, and Murray can go down in any game and be injured, and maybe not even make it to the finals. And even if they're in the finals, if Boston breaks through and plays at the top of their ability, they can win a 7-game series against Denver. They definitely can. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to overcome the obstacle of Jokic and Murray and Gordon and Peyton Watson, who brings good effort and energy, and Michael Porter Jr.'s streaky shooting. But it's within their ability. They have the talent. They have the roster to do it. And if we were to get the Celtics versus Denver Nuggets matchup in the NBA Finals, my God, we would be blessed. Because that would be an unbelievable NBA Finals. It would be an all-timer. It would be a classic. It would not be a sweep. It would not be a 5-game series. And it would not be a 6-game series. It would go 7 games. It would go 7 games back and forth, and each game would be a battle. It would be a war where the Celtics have the advantage and all-around roster, and when the Celtics are making their shots, where the Celtics play a brand of basketball where they're more reliant on good shooting, and sometimes they take tougher shots and they hit tougher shots, when the Celtics are on, they're going to pour it on, and it's going to be Denver trying to come back late and take the game. When the Celtics aren't hitting on all cylinders, the Nuggets are going to be stealing those games. And it's going to be a case of, can Boston hit the absolute ceiling? Or will Jokic and his genius IQ on the basketball court propel them just a little bit further than Boston. And that was just the first game, or the last game, but that was just one game that we had last night. For all those who hate on the NBA regular season, I know it's 82 games, but you have a 162 game baseball season that a lot of people seem to go pretty crazy for. And on a nightly basis, you get insanity in the NBA. We just spent 10 minutes talking about one game between Denver and Boston, and we have a whole nother 6 games to get to. This was a night of psychotic craziness in the NBA. You want to say that the regular season doesn't matter, so therefore it's not entertaining? I got to tell you, there were a lot of teams who wanted to win last night. Trust me, Denver wanted to win. Boston wanted to win. Golden State was trying to win last night, and so was Chicago. And the Kings and the Spurs both wanted that victory. And the Heat and the Mavericks and the Suns, the Timberwolves and the Pacers, these teams were all dying to get that victory. So regular season or not, this is some of the highest level of basketball, some of the best games you'll see. And moving to that Timberwolves-Pacers game, these are teams that are a little hard to fully wrap your mind around, especially Minnesota now playing without Karl Anthony Towns for at least the next month and potentially for the rest of the year. Anthony Edwards didn't start off the game particularly strong, and then he had to go out of the game once or twice. He took 1,000,000 shots, and he ended off the game with the 44 points. And then you have the Indiana side, where Indiana, they seem like they have the big game gene in them, and they have the ability to blow certain teams out that they're not expected to even beat. But here they are still sitting in an 8 seed, but they have one of the players in the NBA who could rise to be the best player in any series, which is Tyrese Halliburton. And they have a pretty well-rounded cast of characters around him with Siakam. They have strong point guard play coming off the bench with McConnell. They have pieces. But they can sink low and they can go really high. And then back to the Minnesota side, you have a challenge where you played. It's not just that you had Karl Anthony Towns for a few games and you lost him. You played 3/4 of the year with a player, and now you have to figure out how to play without him, and he played massive minutes for your team. So it's not just that, okay, next man up. It's that now we have to figure out our offense and our defense bereft of a player who was almost always on the court. So it's a very great challenge. And it's a challenge that's almost certainly not going to work in their favor because in recent days and weeks, the Timberwolves have benefited from a pretty easy schedule, and they've played a lot of bad teams, and they've beaten almost every single one of those bad teams. And now their schedule is going to heat up a little bit, and it's going to get harder. So factor in that you're losing Karl Anthony Towns right at that time, a guy of his size. And yeah, he's not great at the end of the fourth quarter. And that was the biggest problem with him and Edwards on the floor at the same time. But for the rest of the game, you're still missing that guy, and you have to figure out how to play without him. You have to figure out your defensive rotations. You have to figure out who's going to be on the court in his place on offense and what plays are you going to run with him not being there. You played 3/4 of the year a certain way. Now you got to change that on a dime right as your schedule is about to heat up. So that's the challenge for the Timberwolves. And it's similar to a New York Knicks team where you have a guy like Julius Randle. And maybe Knicks fans and maybe NBA fans at large don't love the way Julius Randle fits with Jalen Brunson and his team. And that's exemplified by some of the way Julius Randle played the last time they were in the playoffs and the time before that they were in the playoffs. But when you lose a guy like Julius Randle, you still can't, without the ability to replace him with someone, all those minutes and all those points don't just come from nowhere. Is his fit the best? No, it's not. But do you have the ability to replace him with someone else right now? Can you replace a guy who has the ability to score 40 points in any given night? Same thing for the Timberwolves. Yeah, if you could take Karl Anthony Towns off the team and replace him with Kevin Durant, who, by the way, these are, when I'm talking about players who could potentially replace Karl Anthony Towns, bear in mind that he's making as much money as any of these top NBA players. So when you talk about the best players in the game who could potentially be replacing Karl Anthony Towns, you could literally name anyone. This season, Karl Anthony Towns is only making $36 million, but that goes up to $49 million next season, and then it goes to 53, 57, and 61, respectively. So, yeah, if you were to take Karl Anthony Towns out and just have Gobert as the lone big man with Naz Reid coming off the bench, and you were to replace him with Devin Booker, yeah, I would feel a lot better about this Minnesota team. If you were to replace Karl Anthony Towns with KD, yeah, I would want to see that. There are several players in the league that would just make a lot of sense if you were to take Karl Anthony Towns away and replace him. But to lose him after the trade deadline, after the buyout time, and you're just stuck with whoever else you have on the team, which they're lucky. They actually have Naz Reid, which is great, but you still lost Karl Anthony Towns, and you don't have the ability to replace him. And the Knicks lost Julius Randle, and they couldn't replace him. And then the Knicks lost OG, and they didn't have anyone to replace him. These guys carry a ton of weight. And yeah, the fit with with Randle and the fit with Towns isn't perfect, but they're still really, really good players. I have hated what Karl Anthony Towns has done in the playoffs and what he does down the stretch of close games. I hate it. But there's a reason he's getting paid the money he's getting paid. He has the talent. He has the ability. Now, if I was a Minnesota GM, would I trade him? 100%. I would love to trade him for a guy who would balance out the roster at a position that they need more. Why would you have two centers who can potentially be a championship center when you could have a guard, a center, and a wing? That makes a lot more sense to me. But you still lost a guy without the ability to replace him. So in a game where Edwards shot the ball a gazillion times, and he didn't start off particularly hot, and it was back and forth at the end of the game, you had a big three from Conley there, and you have Edwards pretty much unleashed, unhinged, where he's just able to do exactly what he wants at the end of the game, and he doesn't have to worry. He doesn't have that cloud hanging over him of, well, should I be passing the ball to KAT here for him to create? It was nice to watch, and it's certainly exciting. Now, get well soon to Karl Anthony Towns, but this is going to be enjoyable. Unfortunately, as their schedule heats up, it's probably not going to work out. They're going to lose more games, and it's going to be like, oh, where's KAT? We need KAT. But this is going to be a good stretch of games where we're going to get to see Anthony Edwards hopefully morph into the sole leader on this team. And perhaps, based on the intel that you gather and collect over the next 20 games, 19 games, whatever it is, and in the playoffs, maybe you'll have the intel that you need to part with Karl Anthony Towns and finally send this organization into hopefully the final phase of becoming a championship team. Because that's where they are. They were the dumpster fire for a while. Then they are the promising young team. Then they're atop the Western Conference. And the next move that they make is the move to go from top contender to championship potential. That's their next play here. And maybe with the intel that you get over these last 19 games, you'll be able to figure out what to do with Karl Anthony Towns. In some of the other action that we had in the NBA, we had the Pistons beating the Nets in a game that probably no one watched. Then you had the Miami Heat losing narrowly by 6 points to the Dallas Mavericks. And Dallas came up with timely buckets late from Luka. And this was a game where it was the wild card of each conference. If you had to summarize the narrative of the game, it's the Heat. This wild card in the East who could upset any team in the playoffs. Will they? I don't know. But could they? Yes. They did it last season. And then you have Dallas, this wild card in the West, where their seeding isn't where they want it to be, but they got some more athletic players at the trade deadline. Their team is healthy, with Exum back, a defensive presence. Derrick Jones Jr. around the fringes. They have athletes, and they have Luka and Kyrie and Tim Hardaway if he's shooting the ball right, and they can upset anyone in the West. Will they? I don't know, but can they? Yes. They did it to Phoenix a few seasons ago with a weaker team when Phoenix had perhaps a better team. So you have the wild card in the East versus the wild card in the West. And in a game where Kyrie Irving steps his foot on the line and they lose the ball, and you think, uh-oh, here come the Heat. And Terry Rozier shows exactly why he belongs on this Heat team and why the Heat went out and got him, because at the end of the ball game, he was not fearful in any way. Scary Terry is scary for the other team. Scary Terry's not scared to shoot in the final minute of a close game where you're down by 4. And he hit some massive shots. Absolutely massive, inside and outside. But Kyrie comes back and shows why he's one of the great clutch players. And he shoots from pretty much the same spot. It was a little bit more in the corner than the play where he stepped out of bounds, but he wasn't phased whatsoever, and he comes back, amnesia, and quickly forgets the other play and swishes the 3, and Dallas wins the ball game. Big victory for Dallas, and frankly, if you look at these two teams, the Heat and the Mavericks, which team needed the victory more last night? It was certainly Dallas. Dallas had lost a couple of games in a row. They're starting to doubt themselves. They're starting to doubt the defense. A lot of people are calling for Jason Kidd's head. And the fact that they won that close game against Miami yesterday was huge. You also saw some great defensive possessions from Derek Lively against Bam Adebayo. You also saw some good defensive possessions from Bam Adebayo. Bam is a player who really plays within himself. He's a cerebral basketball player. He doesn't get carried away. He's a great Heat player. And he continues to get better. But you saw some good defense possessions from Lively, too. That was impressive from the rookie. Sometimes you forget he's a rookie. And Dallas able to prevail in a much, much needed victory. And we're going to look at the standings shortly. But let's finish going through these games. You had the Suns beating the Raptors. Thank God for that, because the Suns really need the victory. And then you have the Kings, who have to be thanking the heavens they got that victory against the Spurs last night. The Spurs were playing pretty well. They really had the ball game in the bag. De'Aaron Fox fouls out at the end of the game when he was the guy who was really coming up with the buckets in the fourth quarter to keep it close. And then Malik Monk, with ice in his veins, hit an unbelievable 3 where he did it unassisted. And then Domantas Sabonis with an incredibly timely steal to put the Kings up in that game. That was as timely of a steal, as clutch of a steal and dunk as you will ever see in a close game. The Kings, very, very lucky to escape with that victory, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that they got the win. And on the flip side, you have the Golden State Warriors, who looked like they were going to beat Chicago until Curry twisted his ankle. Now, the game was close. I'm not going to say that Golden State was ahead by a lot. That there was certainly a game that Chicago could have won even if Curry was there, especially with the way DeRozan's playing recently in the end of these fourth quarters. He's been so good in the clutch. And that's a worry if you're a team who's going to be in the play-in alongside Chicago. You'd have to be very worried with the way Kobe White is playing. And you'd have to be very worried with the way DeRozan has looked at the end of these fourth quarters. Because that's where games are won and lost. And you have a guy in DeRozan who's showing you, I can win these ball games at the end. I can go toe-to-toe. I can take a tough, contested shot in the final minute, and you can foul me, and I can still hit the shot. And I can do it on back-to-back plays. Doesn't matter. He can get the shot off over anybody. And the Warriors really, they did what they needed to do to win. Clay hit the massive three to give them the lead, and you thought that they had it, and DeRozan just played a little bit better. When Clay shot the three at the end of the game to give Golden State the lead, everybody was like, oh no, and then he hits it, and the announcer was like, he hit it! Everyone was shocked that Clay did that with all the ups and downs Clay's had this season. Clay just dialed it back and did it. But DeRozan was a little better. And on a night where Jackson Davis just continues to be such a bright spot, and the Warriors have a lot going for them. The Bulls pull out the victory. And I don't know what's making the Bulls turn it on at this point in the season. But you got to respect it. You got to respect a team that's saying, hey, I don't care if we're in the 9 seed. We're playing with pride. We're going toe-to-toe with whoever we go up against in the fourth quarter. And we want to win. They have respect for themselves without Levine on the playing right now. And it's great to see from Chicago. And you hope that Chicago gets that play-in spot, wins the play-ins, and gets into that real series with DeRozan and Kobe White. Let's see what they can do. And with Golden State, if Curry is going to miss any time, Golden State, who was coming on strong to try and move from the 9 seed to the 8 seed and maybe only have to play one play-in game, they may have to be resigned to the fact that they're going to play 2. But we're a long way away. Golden State's not going to roll over. Golden State has a lot of pieces besides for Curry. They can win ball games without Curry. It's not something that they can't do. If the rest of the team is healthy, even if Curry misses 5-6 games, whatever it is, if the rest of the team is healthy, they can still win some ball games. They can still potentially try to move up, but it's going to be hard. Hopefully, Steph Curry will come back soon. And let's take a look at these standings and let's see where we are after last night's really exciting action of NBA games. Obviously, the Celtics are still in first, 7.5 games up on the Bucks, and then you have the Cavaliers in 3. Magic didn't play last night, they're still in 4. The Knicks didn't play last night, still in 5. The Heat with the loss, still in 6. The 76ers in 7th, tied with the Heat. So that loss from the Heat kind of brought the Heat and the 76ers back to even. And then the Pacers losing, and they still sit in 8th. The Bulls, with the win, still sit in 9th. The Hawks still in 10th. Nothing changing in the Eastern Conference. Going to the West, Timberwolves got the victory last night, so they are back in front of the Thunder in this never-ending battle between the Timberwolves and the Thunder for the 1 seed. Thunder at 2, Nuggets at 3, Clippers at 4, Pelicans at 5. They didn't play last night. The Suns with the win staying in 6. The Kings right on their heels at 7 with their victory. The Mavericks right on their heels at 8. They're a game and a half back of the Kings with their victory. And then the Warriors and the Lakers tied at 9-10 in what just seems to be destined to be that first round play-in matchup between the Warriors and the Lakers, where neither team can really shake the other. And then coming up in tonight's games, as it just gets crazier and crazier. Let's see what we got. You got a Hornets versus Wizards game that no one's going to watch. And then you have the Pelicans versus the Sixers. So the Pelicans' forgiving schedule continues, and they should take advantage of this matchup and stay firmly in the 5th seed in the Western Conference. Then the Timberwolves are going to play back-to-back. They're going to travel to Cleveland and take on the Cavaliers, who have been struggling. They've been up and down. They had a big victory against the Celtics, and then they lost in the game against... Who did they lose to in their last game? They lost to the Hawks, right? The Hawks with behind a strong game from Bogdanovich. And, this should be a good one. The Cavaliers are trying to figure out who they are right now in Donovan Mitchell's absence, and the Timberwolves are trying to figure out who they are without Karl Anthony Towns. So it's a game of which team can figure it out, which team can understand themselves in this ball game. Timberwolves, Cavaliers. You have the Magic at 4 facing the Knicks at 5. The Knicks are getting close to bringing back OG Anunoby. These teams are separated by half a game, so you'd love to see the Knicks win and take back respect over at Madison Square Garden and beat the Magic, but it's going to be tough. The Magic are riding a 5-game win streak. Granted, it's come against the worst opposition, the easiest schedule that you could possibly put together. But when you win game after game after game after game, it gives you a sense of confidence. It gives you a sense of buy-in. And this should be a great game between the Magic and the Knicks. It's hard to predict what the Knicks are going to look like. Is Jalen Brunson going to be back? I don't know. Probably not. So I guess you have to say the Magic have a slight advantage, but the Knicks are going to be there fighting all night. Deuce McBride has been playing well, and it should just be a great game. It should be a really close game. Then you have the Hawks going against the Grizzlies. I don't think anyone really will care about that one. It doesn't really make any difference for the Hawks or the Grizzlies, whatever happens there. The Heat are going to keep playing tough game after tough game. They're going to play the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight in Oklahoma City. Very tough place to get a victory. And the Heat playing back-to-back. The Thunder are playing with some rest. So several reasons why you have to give the advantage to Oklahoma City. The Rockets are going to play the Blazers in another game that should be a showcase for Şengün, and everyone can get excited about his statistics and what's to come from him, but not a game that anyone will really watch. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, coming off of their loss to the Golden State Warriors in their last one. They're going to be facing off against the Lakers. Let's see if the Lakers can win and move back in front of Golden State or not and stay in the 10 seed. An exciting night of basketball tonight. The best games of the night, I would say, are the Timberwolves versus Cavs, the Magic against the Knicks, the Heat against the Thunder, and the Bucks against the Lakers. We have 4 really good games tonight. We're poised for the Eastern time zones to move back. To move ahead an hour. They're going to be moving ahead an hour, bringing the time difference between East and West over to 3 hours. So that's going to happen soon. The year is moving along at a rapid pace. We're already a quarter of the way through March. It's March 8th. A lot of great basketball to come down the stretch. We're looking forward to covering it with you. You can follow us at NBAV. That's NBAVE, NBA Avenue. And you can email the show at NBAVENUE. That's NBAvenue@yahoo.com with your questions and comments. As always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.